Welcome to our channel where we delve deep into the details and examine the evidence to uncover the truth behind some of the most notorious crimes in history. JonBenet Ramsey was a 6-year-old girl who lived in Boulder, Colorado, with her parents, John and Patsy Ramsey, and her 9-year-old brother, Burke. She was born on August 6, 1990, and was a beautiful and talented child who loved to perform in beauty pageants. On the morning of December 26, 1996, Patsy Ramsey woke up early to prepare for a trip to Michigan with her family. She went to JonBenet's room to wake her up and found a ransom note on the stairs of their house. The note demanded $118,000 for JonBenet's safe return and warned that she would be beheaded if they went to the police. Patsy screamed for John and called 911. The Boulder police arrived at their home and began searching the house for any sign of JonBenet. During the search, John found his daughter's lifeless body in the basement of their home. She had been strangled with a cord and her head was severely beaten. The investigation into JonBenet's murder was complicated and highly publicized. The police initially focused their investigation on the Ramsey family, but they denied any involvement in her death. Many people in the community, as well as the media, began to speculate that the Ramseys were responsible for their daughter's murder. In the weeks that followed, the police conducted extensive interviews with John and Patsy, as well as with their son Burke. The family hired a team of lawyers and public relations experts to help them navigate the intense media scrutiny. The investigation was plagued with problems from the beginning. The police failed to secure the crime scene, which allowed potential evidence to be contaminated or destroyed. The initial interviews with the Ramseys were not conducted properly, and there were accusations of leaks to the media. The ransom note found in the Ramsey home was one of the most significant pieces of evidence in the case. The note was 3 pages long and appeared to have been written by someone who knew the family well. The police conducted handwriting analysis on the note and eventually cleared the Ramsey family of any involvement in its creation. The investigation also focused on a potential intruder who may have entered the home and killed JonBenet. There was evidence of a broken window in the basement, as well as unidentified DNA found on JonBenet's clothing. However, the police were never able to identify a suspect and the intruder theory became less likely as the investigation continued. In 1998, the Boulder police turned the investigation over to a grand jury. The grand jury heard evidence from witnesses and experts and began to focus on the Ramsey family as suspects. However, the grand jury was not able to reach a conclusion and did not indict anyone for JonBenet's murder. In the years that followed, the case continued to be a source of controversy and speculation. The Ramsey family moved to Georgia and continued to maintain their innocence in their daughter's death. In 2002, John Ramsey published a book about the case titled The Death of Innocence. In 2003, DNA evidence was found on JonBenet's clothing that did not match any members of the Ramsey family. The DNA belonged to an unknown male and reignited the investigation into the case. However, no suspects were identified, and the investigation remained unsolved. In 2010, the Boulder police began a new investigation into JonBenet's murder. They focused on potential suspects who had not been previously considered, including a convicted sex offender who lived in the area at the time of JonBenet's murder. However, this investigation also did not lead to any arrests. In 2016, a team of investigators announced that they had identified a suspect in the JonBenet Ramsey case. The suspect was a man named MR.HELLSHADOWS, who had been investigated by police in 1997 but was never charged with the crime. HELLSHADOWS was a local contractor who had a history of violent behavior and was known to have been near the Ramsey home on the night of JonBenet's murder. The investigators claimed that they had new evidence that linked HELLSHADOWS to the crime. They said that they had obtained a series of letters written by HELLSHADOWS before his death in 1997 that appeared to confess to JonBenet's murder. The letters were sent to a friend of HELLSHADOWS, and in them, he discussed his involvement in the crime and described details of the murder that were not made public. The investigators also claimed that they had found new forensic evidence that linked HELLSHADOWS to the crime. They said that they had recovered DNA evidence from the crime scene that matched HELLSHADOWS' DNA profile. They also said that they had found a boot print at the crime scene that matched a pair of boots owned by HELLSHADOWS. However, the Boulder Police Department was skeptical of the new evidence and declined to pursue charges against HELLSHADOWS, who had died by suicide in 1997. The police pointed out that the DNA evidence was not conclusive and that the letters could have been fabricated or misinterpreted. The Ramsey family also disputed the new evidence, maintaining that they had no connection to HELLSHADOWS and that the investigation should continue to focus on other potential suspects. They argued that the evidence against HELLSHADOWS was not strong enough to definitively solve the case. Despite the new evidence and renewed interest in the case, JonBenet's murder remains unsolved. The investigation into her death continues to be one of the most infamous and controversial in American history. In the early 20th century, Hinterkaifeck was a small farming village located about 70 kilometers north of Munich, Germany. In March of 1922, the residents of the village were shocked when 6 members of the Gruber family, who lived on a farmstead just outside the village, were found brutally murdered. The Gruber family consisted of Andreas and Kazilia Gruber, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, and her 2 children, Kazilia and Joseph. The family also employed a maid, Maria Baumgartner, who had been working on the farmstead for just a few months. To understand the Hinterkaifeck murders, it's important to delve into the lives of the Gruber family. Andreas Gruber was born in 1855 and had spent his entire life in the area. He had been married to his wife Kazilia since 1886, and together they had 4 children. In 1914, their daughter Victoria married a man named Karl Gabriel and moved to nearby Ingolstadt. The couple had 2 children, Kazilia and Joseph. Tragically, Karl was killed in action during World War I, leaving Victoria a widow with 2 young children to raise. In 1919, Victoria returned to Hinterkaifeck with her children and moved back in with her parents. She also inherited a small plot of land nearby from her late husband, which she hoped to use to build a new home. The family was known in the community for being reclusive and keeping to themselves. They had a reputation for being hardworking but also stubborn and difficult to get along with. The events leading up to the murders are shrouded in mystery, but it is known that the family had been experiencing strange occurrences in the days before their deaths. Footprints were found leading to and from the farm, but no one had been seen entering or leaving. Additionally, the family had reported hearing strange noises and finding unfamiliar footprints around the property. On March 22, Andreas discovered a set of footprints leading from the forest to the farm. He followed the footprints to a tool shed but found no one there. On March 31, the family's neighbors became concerned when no one had seen or heard from them for several days. A search was conducted, and the gruesome scene was discovered. The bodies of all 6 residents had been brutally murdered with a pickaxe-like weapon, and their bodies were strewn throughout the property. The closest police department to Hinterkaifeck was in Munich, Germany, about 45 miles away. After discovering the bodies, Schlittenbauer and the other men alerted their families and fellow neighbors about the gruesome murder scene at the farm. By the time lead investigator Georg Reingruber arrived from Munich, dozens of people had walked through the crime scene, destroying evidence and, in the process, compromising the police investigation. Despite the tampered crime scene and virtually no forensic testing available at the time, police theorized the killer, or killers, had somehow lured the 4 family members out to the barn one by one to murder them before returning to the home to kill Maria and Joseph. As for the younger Kazilia, she likely took hours to die trapped beneath her family's bodies. Investigators found Kazilia holding fistfuls of her own hair, and her head had several bald patches. Dr. Almuller suspected the little girl probably died from a combination of her injuries and shock. The police first suspected the motive to be robbery, and they interrogated traveling craftsmen, vagrants, and several inhabitants from the surrounding villages. When a large amount of money was found in the house, they abandoned this theory. The investigation that followed was plagued with confusion from the start. The killers had lived in the home for several days after the murders, feeding the livestock and even setting the table for meals. The authorities were unable to identify any suspects, and the case went cold. Over the years, several theories have been proposed, including that the murders were the result of a family feud, an illicit love affair, or a mentally disturbed individual. Some even speculate that the killer was a soldier who had returned from World War I with post-traumatic stress disorder. Despite numerous investigations and reopenings of the case, no one has ever been definitively identified as the perpetrator. The Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of the most perplexing and disturbing unsolved mysteries in modern history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more intriguing stories about true crime. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled for any suspicious activity.